Good evening and welcome to Real Adult Wisdom. I am Becky Schaefer, your host, and tonight I have Solari with me. Welcome.
Hi, Becky. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And you know what? I'm just gonna be honest, this is like take two for us. So we are officially recording now. Thank goodness.
Good.
Um,
Yeah, we're good and warmed up.
Somehow we just had to get warmed up, I suppose. It's like singers, right? So
Right. Exactly.
Um, I am very excited to bring Solari on here with us, who doesn't just talk about transformation, but embodies the burn before the rise kind of rebirth. So, welcome. I'm ecstatic to have you. And of course, we've been talking for a little while now, but I'm excited that we get to keep talking. Um,
Definitely.
this is going to be a 4-part series called the Rise and Rewrite series. It's not just about the cute version of healing, it's also about the moments that rip you apart and the decision to rebuild on your own terms. Solari is the author of The Sacred Undoing, a book that doesn't romanticize healing, but honors the holy um, collapse that has to happen before the rise. And I'm the author of the Why Not Me concept, a journey of reclaiming your worth, rewriting your story, and finally choosing yourself without an apology. In this series, we're going to put forth both of our worlds, um, the undoing and the becoming, the fall and the rise, and the rewrite. This is for the person who is tired of pretending they are fine, for the one who outgrew their old life but hasn't fully stepped into the new one yet, for the one who knows something inside is done, settling for crumbs. I think we talked about we want to feast, not crumbs.
We want to
And
feast. Yeah, we got
yeah,
to eat.
yeah. So if you're giving everybody a feast and they're giving you crumbs back, you need to keep tuning in to listen to this. Um, so I always say buckle up or unbuckle, because if you're getting a big old feast, you may want to unbuckle or put those yoga pants on.
Right.
Um, so this is where we're going to let that old story die and where we're going to rewrite a new one or start to work on rewriting a new one.
Yeah.
So as into our podcast here, this particular podcast is the hidden breakdown behind polished lives, through the lens of the Why Not Me concept and the sacred undoing, and also, of course, from our raw, real adult wisdom selves here. Um,
Yeah.
but what I love is that you began to write your book as a whisper that you tried to ignore. That's exactly when you started writing it. And I love that we both share our own undoing in both of our books in a different format, which is what brings everything I think together so well. We felt such a pull of not only reclaiming our own worthiness, but also helping others find their permission to grow even when it's uncomfortable, because growing is uncomfortable. And I don't mean growing out, I mean growing inside, that deep, uncomfortable soul searching that sometimes is painful as hell.
Right.
Um, so we talk about how many people walk through their life carrying the invisible weight of unprocessed pain, even as they show up polished, successful, admired by others. High achievers, especially, learn how to perform this certain strength, how to be the ones uh, that others look up to, rely on, brag about. I know I did this for years. I lived the program life. I went to college.
Guilty. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think we can all say guilty. You know,
Yeah.
we go to college, we start that career. I know I got married, I had my kids, but I was not living my authentic life. Um, and once I admitted that, I had to face all that followed, not knowing how at the time.
Hmm.
I knew when I got married, I was doing it more because I was in an education field. Um, I didn't want to get judged by others as I was a lesbian, and I didn't think I could live that life going into
Mhm.
education at the time that I did 28 years ago.
Mm.
And I met a great guy, and we had 2 kids, and my kids were 1 and 3. I had to sit down at the kitchen table and say, "I'm still gay. I really tried this, but it is not for me." And to know that I was living that life because, basically I was living it out of survival,
Mhm.
and because I had not dealt with my past trauma, and I was
Mhm.
trying to not be somebody because of what happened to me. So I was living this non-authentic life.
Totally. Totally. And everything you just said, Becky, is something that I hear in every client that I work with and in myself. Everyone has their own journey into this and their own journey back to themselves. You have your special journey, I have mine. Everyone has different circumstances around what brings them to this point. But the heart of the matter is that we've been uh, betraying ourselves and abandoning ourselves in many different ways through the performance of the life that we've put together. This is why here in my chamber is where I'm airing this from, in my home where I see clients, and the window behind me I have dressed just like a stage, and that's the cover of the book I have here, actually a picture of that. And this is important to me because it's about dropping the performance, dropping the mask, right? Taking off all of the makeup and the costume and standing, so to say, naked in bare truth, center stage with the spotlight on you, and being comfortable with that and with everyone seeing it, and you not feeling like you have to cover and run away. And I think that's the real guts of what this process is about. No matter what you're navigating, it's really about coming back to yourself and standing proud and clear and not afraid of the spotlight on all of the parts of you that you've been trying to hide for so long, right?
Yeah, because we become experts at holding it all together to stay
Yes.
safe. We master the art of presenting everything well. What do we say? Performing, right? Because
Right. Yeah.
performing, you produce results, you're meeting expectations, you're smiling through it all, even
Hmm.
while our nervous system is in this constant state of contraction or
Ooh,
survival mode. And I know you love that
yeah.
word, contraction.
I do. I do. Yeah,
Not
we were
because
kind
of
of chatting.
childbirth.
Well, right. But I mean, but yeah, and we were chatting about this a little bit before. I think that, so if we talk about the concept of essentially rebirthing yourself, it's the same kind of thing that women go through when we have children. So we talk about action of the self,
Mhm.
especially in a spiritual soul-led sense. This is what starts to happen to people when they become very depressed in their lives. Some of them who decide to delete themselves from this experience, right, through suicide. And I really took a deep dive several years studying this. And then I was in behavioral health working with other professionals, understanding this myself, that depression can really take you to that place. But I wanted to know why and how. And this is something that has happened in my family and I've struggled with myself. And so through my spiritual journey, what I'd come to learn and realize from different teachers and then through my own experience is that the our consciousness will contract if we keep ourselves in this box, right? And so if, and I'm sure, and I see you nodding, and I'm sure many people in the audience will be nodding too, you feel that when it's happening,
Mhm.
and it starts to crush you in a way, and it crushes your spirit, because the goal of us coming here in this lifetime is to be able to expand and fully express and then continue to grow within that construct. And so when that feels like it's denied to us, we can literally feel like we're dying. Now this could be the breaking point for many of us who decide to take that route, or this could be the beginning point for rebirthing ourselves. And so if we take it back to the idea of labor, we've had babies, right? And so when the woman has a contraction, it's so painful. You don't know how you're going to get through it. You just want to escape. But then you are reminded to breathe and rely on your inner strength and trust the process. And then after each contraction, life comes forward more and more and more. And so that's why I often talk about being a midwife for people through this transformation process, because you need someone to hold your hand sometimes.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And this isn't something that just, bursts through your front door. It creeps in
Right.
quietly. It's through burnout, emotional numbness, loneliness, chronic pain, anxiety. We try to become that perfect, we try to perfect everything, people pleasing,
Mm-hmm.
or the sense of no matter what you achieve, it never feels like enough. And it's something that simmers until life forces us into confronting it. And unfortunately, we don't listen to our bodies enough to know when to confront things. We just kind of keep going. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where we'll probably talk about the somatic feeling a little bit. But
Yeah.
it's like that hidden unraveling that just kind of happens in your body. And it's kind of exactly why I wrote the Why Not Me concept, because that unraveling is just, it's a feeling of that black hole that you're just spinning and spinning and spinning in.
Yep.
Um, and you got to find that shift. So it's the moment of, you know, high functioning, hurting human can once one time for, or I don't even know what word I'm trying to use right now, but you get to the point where you're like, I'm tired of surviving and I'm ready to live. Or,
Yes.
I'm done performing, I want to feel. And
Yes.
you're allowed to be seen, you're allowed to be supported, and you're allowed to be imperfect.
Hallelujah. Yes.
You know,
Take us to church, Becky. Yes.
that just
That's
made me want to
absolutely right.
that just made me want to start singing that song.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, because that's the truth. That's the truth behind all of this. I know for me and for many of the professionals that I work with, I talk about in my book that this whole process started as a whisper I couldn't ignore.
Hmm.
And I started writing this book 5 years ago. So this was 5 years in process, 5 years of me wrestling back and forth between my identity and my truth,
You
right?
don't want to know when I started mine.
Oh, when did you start yours?
May.
Tell me. In
May.
May? In May. Girl, you lit it up and threw it out there. Kudos to you. Kudos to you. That's amazing. So you started yours in May. I actually published mine this past May after 5 years. So yeah, May was a huge month, I think, for a lot of us. Maybe in the audience, there's a few of you who think back to May and we're like, whoa, damn, yeah, that was a big month. But yeah, a lot of things were moving at that time. And
Mhm.
what I had to do is really just let it go. And I mean, I left my corporate job a year ago, September. And so I spent the better part of this past year being in hermit mode, finding out who I really am and who is that without some sort of performing title or culture that I have to assimilate to. Who am I just on my own? And
Mhm.
that's really what moving into Solari came from, is just the full expression of myself. And then, of course, there's a big step in putting it in black and white, as you know, into a book for people to read your most intimate transmissions and sit with them themselves. And once it's out here in the third dimension, right? Once it's like a real thing, kind of no going back. But
I know.
for you
Isn't that
writers
weird?
out there, yeah, for you writers out there who are struggling with this, do it, do it. We did
Yeah,
it. We can do it too.
it's so
Yeah,
surreal to hold it, right?
isn't
It's
it?
just like,
Yeah,
yeah, because it's like, you know, we didn't write these books for the broken. It's written for the brilliant, capable, resilient people who
right.
don't realize that they're hurting because they've adapted so well to carrying the weight.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you touched on something very profound there. I have found most of the people who come to me who are struggling are brilliant people,
Mm-hmm.
and they're so intelligent to the point that they can adapt to all of these things, still hold it all together, and not have anyone really suspect, except for maybe the people closest to them, but in general, no one really suspecting that they're struggling in such a way. And in a way, that's kind of a downfall of having so much intelligence and talent, is that you are really good at putting on the show, right?
Yes, the performing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, because the truth is, like, the patterns didn't mean you were broken. They meant that you survived it. And of course, as they come to you, or any clients come to either one of us,
Hmm.
um, survival isn't the goal anymore. It's freedom.
Absolutely. Yes, it is. For me personally, in my story, I just hit a point where I was tired of suffering. It
Hmm.
was like every day repeating the same type of cycle. And I would sit and pray at night and question, why is this happening to me? And that leads right into the work that you've done, I believe. Why does this keep going? Why do I keep repeating these patterns? How can I stop suffering?
Hmm.
Because it wasn't an option for me to leave this life. I don't want to. I understand why people feel that that's kind of the only option they have, but I was like, there's got to be something else. There's got to be something else. But that's why I love your work and your book, and I the movement behind it, really the idea of, instead of asking why me, why not me, but why not me? And that really alchemizes the entire flow of energy behind what can be happening internally to us. We can do a complete 180, and instead of being negative on ourselves all this time and feeling trapped, that one question will prompt you to then see opportunities and see hope, and maybe find a little gratitude in your process, which is such a huge thing. Also, once you start entering into this and you want to move forward, being just so grateful that you've remembered yourself and that you're ready to stop abandoning and betraying yourself and move forward
Right.
in a way in which you really love who you are. Yeah.
Right. And I think the whole point was to get people to get away from saying, why me? Because it kind of sticks you in victimhood, and
Yes.
keeps you there. And so,
Yes.
the whole point is reframing victimhood and understanding that many of us didn't choose what happened, but we can all choose what happens next. And,
Absolutely.
I think there's times in our lives too. I know there's times where I would get really strong and get out of whatever I was in and be like, no, I'm not going to choose this for me because I deserve better. But then I would find comfort in going back to that same routine because it's
Right.
really all I knew. And
Right.
that's probably how some of our listeners feel as well. It's just like you just get yourself in this circle, and you don't know how to step out of that circle until something breaks. And
That is right.
yeah, I
Yeah.
hit that point at one point in time, and I'm like, okay. And that's where my little thing was, you know what? Survival is not my goal anymore. It's freedom. I need to feel free.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and that took a lot. And that took a while. And I think a lot of people aren't given the tools or the skills, to guide them to be able to do so. And we have to learn to undo what has been done. It's never going to go away. It's
Mm-hmm.
always going to be there, whether you made the mistakes personally, whether something happened to you, whether you're a survivor of abuse, sexual abuse, rape, doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter, domestic violence. You have to undo what has been done to you and realize, like, you didn't do that to yourself.
Right.
You were doing the best that you could at that time to survive.
Right.
And I like to visualize like a toolbox, and every day I am putting new tools in that box, and I'm taking some old ones out that, don't benefit me anymore. But, I carry this big toolbox around, and no matter where I'm at as a life coach or an author or an educator, I'm always
Yes.
going to be adding new tools to that box. And I'm very thankful for that, to be able to add tools to that box. And that's where I actually named some tools for this podcast.
Yeah.
So, and I think you can expand on this as well. So,
Sure.
tool number one is I called it the aligned or outperformed. It's like a check-in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when you catch yourself pushing or perfecting or powering through, you need to pause and ask yourself, am I being authentic right now or am I performing? And,
Yeah.
if authentic, breathe into it and keep going with compassion. But if you're performing, you need to ask, what am I afraid will happen if I let people see the real me right now? Because I'm going
Yeah.
to tell you right now, when I let people see the real me, nothing bad happened. It's
Isn't that something? Yes.
I wasn't judged. Uh,
Yeah.
Actually, I got the duh. We knew.
Really? Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had the utmost support. And I think a lot of people are afraid of the unknown, you know, to allow that to allow them to be authentic, to give them that grace to be able to carry themselves for who they are.
Definitely. Definitely. And you touched on so much there that I love, especially your toolbox that you kind of build along the way. And I think of it as my box of wisdom.
Mhm.
uh, all of the trauma I've been through and the programming that I've had to look at and reprogram around. Because if we think of our brain as a computer and the programming as the software, well, if you're working off of software from 1988,
Right.
right? When you were younger, it might be outdated. You might need to reprogram yourself to match what your current experience is. And I'll tell you, it's very tricky because if you are someone who has experienced any level of trauma on the spectrum, right? So trauma can happen and it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be a little thing, but it really ingrains something within you,
Mhm.
or an emotion that becomes trapped that you can't quite process or let go of, to the heavier things. So I'm a survivor of sexual assault myself, and I have had a bad marriage for my first go around, and I know exactly what that's like. I know what it's like to be utterly abandoned. I know a lot of the pain that comes with trying to hide parts of myself because I didn't want people to know what had happened to me, because I didn't want the judgment.
Mhm.
Judgment is huge, right? And I think the number one way to heal through that is to really sit down with what has happened to you and look at it with compassion and take a macro view of it instead of just in the moment and that micro view. Really look out at everything and say to yourself that, look, you've done what you needed to do to survive, but this is no longer serving you.
Mhm.
And I know for me and a lot of other people, from what stems from that is wanting to numb a lot of this. And especially if you're a high performer, so you're always on all the time, so to say, when you're at work or with your family or with your community or what have you, that it's always the push, push, push to do so well. But then when you come back and you're alone with yourself, how do you feel then? How do you feel
Right.
then? Do you have to reach for a vape or a smoke? Do you have to reach for a bottle? Do you have to reach for, you know, behaviors that aren't considered safe, but you have like that thrill seeking, and there it can show up in so many
Mhm.
ways. And everyone out here has got something. Everyone's got some kind of crutch or some kind of kink that keeps them, keeps the shadows in the box, so to say, instead of taking the time to say, hey, you know what, it's okay to look at this and address it. And I just want to say that's why I think it's so important, like women like you and I, and hopefully more of us will become inspired to start talking about this, writing books, sharing our stories, doing podcasts, so that way it becomes a normal thing to understand the undoing or the why not me. Because this is a normal process. It's just that nobody's talking about it, nobody's given it a name, nobody puts systems behind it. So that way real transformation can happen and we can all move on and be successful in our alignment. And so I just think that it's time that we all start having a real conversation of what this looks like, and these different tools that you're offering, so we all don't feel so alone.
100%. 100%. And
Yeah.
also just, the tool of the nervous system, like permission to pause and reset.
Mm.
And I
Hmm.
think a lot of people don't give themselves time to pause and reset because we feel like we got to do. We got to have a plan. We got to do this. We got to be, you know, we got to move on to the next thing. And I think we
Hmm.
forget to pause and reset sometimes. And I don't think
Definitely.
as humans or the way that the world's been set up for us, we don't give ourselves that time to pause and reset. And most high achievers don't know how to reset without guilt because
Yeah,
then you feel like
exactly.
you're worthless or you're not putting forth anything into this world. But
Right.
it's just I think like people need to realize like, and this is something I've had to say to myself, my worth is not measured by how much I hold alone. Rest is allowed here. Like I'm allowed to rest. And that's where the why not me is about permitting yourself to receive, not just give. Allowing yourself
Yes.
to rest and
Yes.
pause and reset.
Yes, totally. This is something that I had to really work on myself because I was always, so there's kind of three ways that we can divide up our time, right? If we think of a triangle, which a triangle represents the threefold nature of the universe and everything, we can
Mhm.
find it everywhere. But in terms of how we spend our time, there's active, passive, and neutral time. And I think the way that society is has evolved in itself, especially with, endless scrolling and social media and all of this type of stuff, we've lost the gift of neutral time. And
Mm.
neutral time is when nothing is coming in and nothing is going out. So when we're active, we're outputting. This is high performer all day. And when we're passive, we're inputting, trying to learn, trying to get more resources, trying to, get the tools that we need to do better. And that's great. All of these aspects are great, but they must be in balance. They must be in equal measure. And so, what I had to do is really sit down and say, when am I quiet with myself? Where is my neutral time? And when we do that, this is when we can hear the voice of our higher selves or of God or whatever you want to call it. But it's not going to come through if we're constantly outputting energy somewhere else or taking in other energy. It happens when we sit in our own. And so, what I had to do at the beginning was actually schedule, like on my Google Calendar, at least an hour 2 times a week or three to have neutral time. This is my neutral time block. And the way that I could pick up neutral time, we can do this by taking a bath. Everyone, always thinks of meditation at first, but meditation's not for everybody. Okay.
Right.
Taking a bath, cleaning, washing dishes. Um, Things like this, taking a walk outside without watching anything or listening to anything, and being comfortable in the void. I think that's something that people who are high performers or who have had trauma aren't comfortable in. But once we can embrace the void and then really receive the wisdom that comes through there, the healing can really start happening. And it happens mentally, right? And it happens within the spirit, but also, as you hinted to, within the body physically, because the body does
Mhm.
keep the score. That's a great book, by the way, if anyone wants a book and understanding how the body somatically holds a lot of what we live with on the day to day. But that holistic view, again, 3 points, right? Mind, body,
Mhm.
soul, all of that has to be paid attention to and spoken to be able to really move into this new season of who you are, or more of who you are, I guess.
Who you're becoming.
Becoming, right? Yeah.
Becoming, yes, for sure.
That's
And then,
exactly right.
oh yeah, and then the third tool I was going to talk about tonight was the why am I carrying? What am I carrying that isn't mine?
Mm,
And I think a lot of us have been carrying things that aren't ours, or we try to carry other people's problems, or we feel bad for them, and we feel like we need to pick up the slack. So
absolutely.
I put in one thing I do, with my clients as well is, I've been carrying blank, to keep people comfortable, proud, or impressed, but it is no longer mine to hold. And
Hmm.
so, examples that I know people in the past have had, like the role I've been carrying the role of a strong one. I've been carrying the role of the peacekeeper, or I've
Hmm.
been carrying the role of the one who never needs help because, we got to be tough and I don't need help. I can do it myself, right? Or
Right.
I've been carrying being a perfectionist or the fixer. Um, but once you name it, you can release it. But until you name that, you cannot release it. You cannot heal a story that you're still pretending isn't heavy.
That's exactly right. Yes, that's exactly right. And it is all about pretending, and it's pretending to yourself too. So before you can really put yourself out there honestly to the world, you have to put yourself out there honestly to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a heavy process. And it's something that you can do on your own, absolutely. But it's very nice to have a coach or a teacher or somebody who can talk to you about this process because they've been through it themselves. That's one of the reasons why I was so excited to come on and talk to you, because I'm a big believer in embodiment. We can study and learn and get degrees, or go on retreats and things like that, and all day long, but until you've actually walked this path, can you help someone else, midwife them, so to say, through the process themselves? And so I think that there's a reason why you and I went through what we went through.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way we can bring this authentically to other people, hold space for them too, in a way that they feel safe, seen, understood, all of this. Because at the end of the day, no one out here is really that bad. You aren't as bad as you think you are. And if you're listening to this, that's a big message that I want you to hear. You're not alone, and you're not as bad as you think you are. And as soon as you start talking about them, like you said, and naming these things, putting identity to them, then you can release the lesson and release the karma behind that. That's some of what I talked about in my masterclass that I put up yesterday on YouTube about why you had to break, right? And we talk about why we need to release a lot of these lessons. One, so we stop suffering, of course, but two,
Mm-hmm.
so we don't keep repeating them again, and we can truly grow and expand and write books and do podcasts and meet other great people, and just continue the whole journey. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And this is a journey I would not change for anything.
Not
Um,
at all. Not at
a lot
all.
of people are like, I'm so sorry, that all this happened. I'm like, don't be sorry. Like, it's allowed me to become what I am today. And I think, I had hit a point in my life where, I did leave my marriage. And then, of course, I dated bad because I dated what I knew.
Mm,
And I got to the point where I left a relationship. And there were two things that came out of that will stay with me forever. And I think this can relate to a lot of people because therapy is a great thing. Having a life coach, a therapist, whatever you need, I think it's all a great thing.
mm-hmm.
But my therapist said, Becky, when you get held underwater, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I fight like hell to get to the top, to breathe. And she's like, that's what these relationships are doing to you. And you got to get to the top and breathe, and you got to be honest with yourself about your healing, not with what you're doing in the world. Like, yes, you're successful educator, you got 2 masters, 2 great kids, you're doing this, you're doing that, but you're drowning. And I still had not dealt with this huge, huge trauma in my life. And she gave me an assignment, and it's in like, chapter 1 of my book. And
Mm-hmm.
I had to write a letter to my child self from my
Yep.
adult self.
Oh yeah.
I wrote a 13 chapter book in less time than it took me to write a Dear Child letter to myself. That Dear
Yeah.
Child letter to myself was probably the
Oh
hardest
yeah.
thing I've ever written. I was just
That's
like,
hard work.
what the
Yes, it
hell?
is. Yeah.
But
That's
let me
such a
tell
big.
you, it was a
Uh-huh.
release. It was such a release. And I do I take my readers through a whole step by step thing on how to write a Dear Child letter. And
Mm-hmm.
it's hard. It is not an easy assignment, but it was probably one of the most rewarding healing assignments because I felt such a release. I felt like that child self of mine finally forgave me, which
Mm-hmm.
sounds really weird that we can say that we need our child self sometimes to forgive us, because at that time, people are doing the best that they can,
Mhm.
all that they know how to do, and you are a child.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Yeah.
so that was great. So that was the moment of truth for sure. And I think that moment, healing becomes possible when you allow that moment to happen in your life.
Definitely. When you give a voice to your inner child, and then also when you lend your wisdom now to the inner child, that's such a beautiful process. It's a session that I do with my clients. I call it a shamanic journey. So it's a
Mhm.
guided meditation in trance to go back to one of the core moments, because what I'm into is healing the core issues. I'm not here to band-aid you.
Right.
I want my clients to one day not need me, right? Because that's how I know I've done my job. And so what we do is we go in, and it's the same kind of concept, writing the letter or guided meditation, but it's having this encounter and having this exchange. And the reason why that works is because it's healing in the quantum. It's healing in the space that is outside of normal time
Mhm.
and space. And when we talk about time, time is not linear. Many of us think time is like this, like a timeline, but time is stacked, right? And all of your experiences are stacked on top of one another. And so essentially, if we can go in and heal a moment in the quantum, back when you were a child, so to say, quote
Mhm.
unquote, it actually affects your field and what you are doing now and today. So that is such a powerful process. And if you've got that in your first chapter, then I mean that's such a powerful thing right off the bat for people to get from you. Another interesting fact is my book has 13 chapters also. So yeah, I don't know what it is about that. I've always kind of considered 13 a bit of a lucky number for me. And then the book just kind of came out with that many chapters. But I think that you addressing that and offering it very, very upfront in the first chapter is really where a lot of this can start, right? Is
Mhm.
addressing those type of very early programmings and giving the comfort and the forgiveness and the compassion to ourselves and the people around us through those processes, and then having a solid place to move forward from there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, for sure. But so I'm I'm excited that we actually have 3 more episodes
Yeah.
of this,
Me
because
too.
we have a lot. Who knows, we may have to have more than that, but, 'cause
Sure. I'm here for it. There's
oh,
so
man,
much, though. There's so much, right?
we could have a whole year of this.
Yeah, I think so.
So easy to fill, so many things, but, um, I mean, as we come to a close, I just wanna take a moment to honor the depth of what we opened today. If you're listening and
Yes.
something inside you softened, crackled, whispered, "This is me," please know that listening to this is just not a coincidence. It's your inner truth is rising to the surface. It's part of you.
Yep.
It's tired of performing.
Yeah. That's burnt out, that's exhausted, that wants to escape, that's ready to drop the shit, all of these things.
Yes.
It's we've been there, and so we're here to talk about it with you and for you, and to say the things maybe that you haven't had the language to say yet, to express. But we're here to bring that. So yes, I'm definitely looking forward to continuing these conversations and getting a lot deeper into what we're talking about and what this process is to bring people back to themselves. Yeah.
Absolutely. And our listeners, you guys have 2 books to read, right? Hold yours that we're very these are amazing. I love that your cover is your
Yay!
background.
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah.
Maybe
So
I need to get an anchor background.
yeah, there you go. Create you something that really speaks to you. But yeah.
Well, I wanna thank you so much for being a part of the show today, and we will return to this next Monday at
Next Monday.
7 PM, and I'm
Sounds
gonna
great.
leave an open forum of comments, questions, anything below our show today that you guys can add, and we'll answer those at the beginning of next Monday's show.
Yes, please. Yes. I love answering questions. So don't
Mhm.
be afraid. The first step to healing is asking a question like Becky's, why not me?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Exactly. So I want to thank you so much for being a part of the show tonight. And I want to
Of
thank
course.
everybody for listening to Real Adult Wisdom.
Woo, everybody have a great week. Thank you.
Yes.